What could I do this year for April Fool's Day? I've already done a list based off of television shows, movies. Oh, I know, books. There are 3 types of books: the ones that you want to read, the ones that you don't want to read, and the ones that you're forced to read. Most often, the books you're forced to read come from school. Surprise, this list is full of those. It's miraculous when these books you would have never intended to read otherwise turn out to be great. I'd recommend these books to anyone, and unlike my video game suggestions, there's no excuse to not try these books because we have these fandangled things called libraries where you can try these books for free.
Number 10.
The Drunkard's Walk starts with 2 stories. One is about a person who won the lottery by thinking 7 times 7 is 48, and the other is the author being grateful that Hitler existed. The book then discusses probability theory in layman's terms, and it ends by saying that just because something is popular doesn't necessarily mean that it's superior. Leonard Mlodinow seems to mistake uncertainty with randomness and chance, however. Just because I don't know how a girl will respond if I ask her out doesn't mean it's based off of chance. She's fully aware of how she will respond. I can try and calculate odds all I want, but it doesn't actually change anything. He only briefly mentions this by saying how a coin lands is based off of how it's thrown, and then proceeds to write the rest of the book ignoring that fact. It's a great read if you replace the word randomness with uncertainty just about every single time it appears in the book. It has great stories about coincidences, sample space statistics, and why O.J. Simpson is most likely guilty.
Number 9.
Some books you just have to be forced to read in order for you to actually read them. A Tale of Two Cities is one of these books. When Charles Dickens wrote this behemoth, he was paid by the word, and it shows. But don't just take my word for it, let me read you the first sentence of the book. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven, we were all going direct the other way. In short, the period was so far like the present period that some of its noisiest authorities insisted on its being received, for good or for evil, in the superlative degree of comparison only. The first 75% of the book is stuff like that, just basic world building, but the last 25%, things go down. You have to wade through the first 3/4 of the book for the last part to have any significance, but it's worth it. If I had to compare A Tale of Two Cities to any video game, it would be Mother 3. Neither of them are my favorites. However, they're both definitely up there.
Number 8.
Most works of fiction begin by establishing a setting, starting a conflict, having a journey, reaching a climax, and then finishing with a resolution. While the Joy Luck Club does do this, author Amy Tan decided to throw chronology out the window. The book stars 4 daughters and 4 mothers, 7 of whom tell 16 stories. While the stories are separate and can essentially be read in any order, they're completely interrelated, as characters that are the stars of other stories will make appearances in the story you're reading at the time. Only by reading all 16 stories can you truly understand every interaction that occurs within the book. As a result, plenty of the stories are better the second time reading them. I don't want to spoil any of these stories, but I will say that the book is aptly written for anyone who has a mother.
Number 7.
In the 1840s, 13-year-old boy Jesse Bollier is playing his fife in the marketplace when he's kidnapped and put aboard a ship. The crew forces Jesse to play his fife in a way that makes the slaves dance so that their muscles will be strong when they're ready to be sold. He becomes the slave dancer. This book is cruel, and I know books about slavery aren't going to be all sunshine and lollipops, but this book is cruel. One of the members of the crew is named Ned, and he takes Jesse under his wing and genuinely cares about his survival. He dies midway through the book with only a sentence of detail. While the book is not a slow burn, the last section is the most memorable, with the last page burned into my brain. It's a fair warning to say that this book will be hard to read for those who are faint of heart or are easily distracted, such as the 40 or so kids who gave this book a 1-star review on Amazon. You should be able to tell whether or not you will like the book within the first 50 pages.
Number 6.
The Crucible by Arthur Miller is a perfect allegory for the YouTube copyright system in the sense that if you're accused, nobody is going to take your side. You just want to go in, find the people responsible for these decisions, then smack them upside the head and tell them to stop with the bullshit. So you drive to YouTube headquarters and tell them that you've seen someone upload a video of full SpongeBob episodes and they're making money off of it, but they don't even seem to care because it wasn't picked up by their copyright detection system and therefore they're not committing copyright infringement. Then the video is taken down a week later, but not after the uploader has probably made hundreds of dollars on it. I'm getting sidetracked. The Crucible is written like a play, so it's very easy to follow. The book follows John Proctor and how he realizes that the opinions of the public don't matter as much as the opinions of those whom he cares about. John Proctor dies, but telling how the events unfold would be the true spoiler. A side note about the film, it's great, one of the best book-to-movie transitions out there. This is most likely because Arthur Miller, writer of the original book, wrote the film's screenplay. That, Hollywood, is the way to do it.
Number 5.
Imagine a world with no pain nor suffering. This would entail a literally black and white world. After all, the color red can stir feelings of agitation and anger in a person, which could lead to violence. You would be forced to take pills where sex becomes no longer pleasurable. After all, rape occurs once every 107 seconds, so if you remove the motivation, there's no crime. Such is the life of the community where Jonas lives, where the only true freedom you have is until you're 12 years old and have your assignment for the rest of your life. Jonas, having done a variety of volunteer work while growing up, is given the role Receiver of Memory. He is to be the sole person in the community who remembers things such as color and war, music and pain. The Giver is another book that asks the fundamental question between freedom and security and whether or not such a dull world would be worth living in. But if you want to ignore all of that, there's still a well-detailed chase scene at the end. Don't let the front cover illustration and back cover synopsis fool you. Honestly, our 7th grade teacher had us redo either of these as part of a final project on The Giver.
Number 4.
I read Ender's Game with pretty much no analytical work, which seems okay because the book doesn't really seem to hold any secrets. There's something to be said about an author who can write so directly. Humanity has its first encounter with alien intelligent life, which it calls the Buggers. The Buggers came to the humans, not the other way around, and they have already tried taking over Earth twice. To prepare for the inevitable third invasion, Earth enlists children with brilliant tactical minds into space academies. Enter Ender Wiggin, who combines his older brother's manipulative skills with his older sister's respect for other people in order to become an effective leader. Ender is first taken to Battle School, which is team-based laser tag on zero-gravity steroids. At age 10, Ender is taken to Command School, which works a lot like the tactical combat from Masters of Orion 2, only in real time. I would have killed to go to either of these academies. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I will tell you that between the book and the movie, you should go with the book. My brother might tell you it's a perfect adaptation of the book, but he's never read the book.
Number 3.
To Kill a Mockingbird is a very divisive book. I have never met a single person who thought it was just okay. They either really, really like it, or they really, really hate it. You could probably infer the camp where I set up my tent. The first half of the book introduces most of the characters and gives you plenty of time to figure out which one of them is your favorite. My favorite character is Jem, as he struggles to find the balance between the workings of society and the teachings of his father, Atticus Finch. And really, who could not love Atticus Finch, using his strong sense of justice to defend those who cannot defend themselves? Atticus Finch succeeded in convincing many a folk to take up the lawyer profession. Great books cause the reader to question the world around him or her, and while new readers of To Kill a Mockingbird may not be racist, this book can still teach a thing or two about making drastic assumptions about people and their actions without truly knowing them.
Number 2.
It's 10th grade. The teacher hands out books of Animal Farm and tells us to finish reading the 3rd chapter by Tuesday of next week. It's Thursday. I'm thinking to myself, great, not another book. But I start reading it during study hall. I finish the entire thing in one day. That isn't to say the book is very long, but it is easily the most addictive book I have ever read. The animals of Manor Farm are tired of working for the humans, so they conduct a takeover and turn it into Animal Farm, a place where all animals are equal. The pigs of Animal Farm take the role as leaders. Corruption and mission creep set in, and by the end of the book it becomes apparent that things are almost exactly the same as they were at the beginning. The faces of the pigs and the humans become indistinguishable to the animals, as the reader realizes that the differences between communism and capitalism are smaller than originally thought. Both systems consist of haves and have-nots, and those who have use their power to obtain even more. It's great to read again and again to pick up every last detail of manipulation. And now, an honorable mention. Jeff Bussey fights in the Civil War as a Union soldier, eventually sent to the Confederacy as a spy. He realizes that the Confederates aren't a bunch of slave-holding jerks, and he has to make a decision between serving his country and his newfound friends. At first glance, Rifles for Waddy might seem like a book written by a Confederate sympathizer. Upon closer look, it becomes apparent that the book is trying to teach that just because someone disagrees with you does not mean they're a bad person, and just because someone does agree with you does not mean they're a good person. It takes a while for the book to get to this main conflict of being a spy, and the stories that precede it aren't always that interesting. Still, a good read.
Number 1.
I was first introduced to Lord of the Flies through the movie. It was terrible, so dreadful and violent. When it was assigned, I really didn't want to read the book. That quickly changed as the loss of innocence caused the boys' society on the island to degrade as they became their own worst enemies. The book doesn't patronize its readers. It has a lot of hidden gems that require some analysis in order to truly understand. The best example of this is when Ralph is told that Roger has sharpened a stick at both ends. Initially, I just glanced over that, but part of our reading assignment was to know what Ralph figured out while hiding in the bushes. My friend said that Ralph discovered a certain giant boulder, but upon reading the sequence again, I noticed that Ralph discovered that the stick he was holding in his hand was sharpened at both ends. Instantly, dopamine flooded my brain. I got the chills, and I'm pretty sure my palms were sweaty. I have since tried watching the movie again, and I still hate it, not because of the violence and brutality, but because the movie shows a rampant disregard for the original source material. Even factoring that out and judging it as a standalone film, the acting is some of the worst I have ever seen, and I like to believe I have a high tolerance for that sort of thing. The film barely has any of the book's motifs, themes, and subtext, 3 of the things that make Lord of the Flies not only the greatest book I have ever been forced to read, but the best book I have ever read, bar none. If you enjoyed this video and like video games, be sure to look at my other videos relating to video games. If you don't like video games, feel free to check out my other April Fool's lists. Thanks and have a nice day. Did you know that there are libraries that will allow you to check out and borrow video games? So much for rental stores.